Hey there, fantasy owners, and welcome to Lift the Cup Fantasy, or LTC Fantasy as some people call it. And today is our Week 20 strategy episode. We're going to look at the schedule, break it down, and hopefully help you strategize to get that Week 20 win. Some things to look at is the light nights are Monday with 5 games, Wednesday with only 2 games, and Friday with 4 games. It's only 2-game weeks for Dallas and San Jose, and you can tell the schedule is starting to get condensed because it's 4-game weeks for Colorado, Columbus, Florida, LA, Minnesota, Nashville, Philadelphia, St. Louis, Tampa Bay, Toronto, Vegas, and Winnipeg. It's also a 5-game week for Calgary. So we will focus on the teams that play Monday and Wednesday. Friday, the other light night, will be covered in our Weekend Ads episode coming out later this week. Do note that Edmonton is the only team that plays both Monday and Wednesday. And then after we cover the Monday and Wednesday teams, we will cover on the remaining 4-game teams, defensemen and forwards, to hopefully get you some added value on your player ads. Do remember to check out the description because I will mention down there where in the time in the episode to find Monday defensemen and forwards, Wednesday defensemen and forwards, and then the other remaining 4-game teams, defensemen and forwards. That way, if you need to come back to the episode, depending if you need one piece one day, one piece the next, due to injury, etc., you can always come back. And do remember to subscribe because then it is easier to come back and find the video. So we'll jump right into it. Monday defenseman, some that I look at is Matt Roy from Los Angeles, owned in 20% of Yahoo leagues. Currently plays on that second pairing. He has 3 points in his last 5 games, and he does have, in those 5 games, 8 shots on goal and 7 blocks. Really is your best fantasy option out of LA, other than Doughty, but you're not getting him. Moving along, Noah Hannafin from Calgary, owned in 18% of Yahoo leagues. Plays on that second pairing and second power play unit, and he's been decent of late, and he also has 3 points in his last 5 games, and in those 5 games he has 7 shots on goal and 6 blocks. Next one from Calgary is Rasmus Andersson, owned in 47% of Yahoo leagues, plays in that top pairing and top power play unit, and he's been really hot, as has Calgary in general. He has 10 points in his last 11 games. Next one's Evan Bouchard from Edmonton, owned in 45% of Yahoo leagues, currently on the second pairing and top power play unit since Barrie went down the last game and didn't return. And he's been really good when Barrie's been out of the lineup, and I do see that trend continuing. It showed when Barrie was gone that last game. Bouchard was out there with under a minute left, and on the game-tying goal with 50 seconds left, he did get an assist. And that's showing that trust in the added ice time that he will be getting. Next one's Noah Dobson from the Islanders, owned in 50% of Yahoo leagues, on the second pairing and top power play unit. And the young guy's really been hot lately, having 9 points in his last 10 games. And the last one's Rasmus Sandin from Toronto, owned in 3% of Yahoo leagues. He's on the top pairing and second power play unit right now. He's really a highly touted young defenseman, and it's starting to show. He has 3 points in his last 2 games as he's been bumped up to that top pairing. Going into Monday forwards, I look at Jake DeBrusk from Boston, listed as left wing, right wing, owned in 21% of Yahoo leagues. He plays on that top line and second power play unit, and he has 9 points in his last 7 games played. Another one from Boston's Eric Holla, listed as center left wing, owned in 5% of Yahoo leagues, plays on the second line and second power play unit, and he's currently on a 5-game point streak, and in those 5 games he has 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points. Going along to LA is Philip Daniel, listed as a center, owned in 22% of Yahoo leagues, plays on that second line and second power play unit, and he has 8 points in his last 9 games. And of those 8 points, 6 of them are goals. So if goals are weighted a little higher in your league, definitely somebody to look at. Same with Adrian Kempe. He's listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 56% of Yahoo leagues, plays on that top line with Kopitar and top power play unit. And in his last 7 games, he has 6 goals and 2 assists. So again, if goals are weighted a little bit higher, definitely take a look at Kempe. Last one from LA is Victor Arvidsson, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 48% of Yahoo leagues, plays on that second line and top power play unit, and he's been really hot the last month. He has 8 points in his last 9 games. Next one from Buffalo is Tage Thompson, listed as center, left winger, and right winger, owned in 53% of Yahoo leagues. Plays on that top line and top power play unit, and he's been really hot, having 23 points in his last 21 games. That's a little over a quarter of a season and over a point per game there. A couple other options are Alex Tuck and Skinner from Buffalo. They're just not... They go in 1 or 2 game spurts where they don't get points. Unlike Thompson, he's been fairly consistent, getting you at least a point every game. Moving along is Carter Verhaeghe from Florida, listed as center left winger, owned in 56% of Yahoo leagues. He does play on that top line with Barkov and second power play unit, and he's had a really solid season, having 40 points in 53 games. Going to Calgary, we look at Blake Coleman, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 32% of Yahoo leagues, plays on the second line and second power play unit, and he's currently on a 5-game point streak where he has 2 goals and 4 assists for 6 points. So he's been really hot of late. Next one's Tyler Toffoli, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 55% of Yahoo leagues, currently on that third line, but does play on the top power play unit, and he's starting to get settled in Calgary. He has 5 points in his last 3 games. Next one from Calgary is Michael Backlund, listed as center right winger, only owned in 17% of Yahoo leagues. Plays on that second line and second power play unit, and he has 5 points in his last 5 games played. Going north of them, up to Edmonton, is Warren Foegele, listed as left winger, right winger, only owned in 1% of Yahoo leagues, so you can find him virtually anywhere. He is playing on that top line and second power play unit, and just with him playing on that top line with McDavid, it should amount to some piggyback points, so there should be some added value there. Next one's Kyler Yamamoto, listed as a right winger, owned in 5% of Yahoo leagues, plays in that second line with Draisaitl and second power play unit. He has 3 goals and 1 assist in the last 8 games, but he back on the second line, and that's where he's played and been most productive, is when he is playing with Draisaitl. Going to Colorado, I look at Andrei Burakovsky, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 64% of Yahoo leagues, so his ownership is up there, but he is available in a little over a third of the leagues. He is playing on that top line and second power play unit, and he's been really hot of late, having 6 points in his last 5 games. Going to the island, Zach Parise, listed as a center left winger, owned in 4% of Yahoo leagues, so available anywhere. Second line and second power play unit, and the veteran's been really hot, having 8 points in his last 7 games. Another one from the Islanders, Brock Nelson, listed as a center, only owned in 19% of Yahoo leagues. He's currently centering the top line and top power play unit. He does play on the top power play even with Barzal there, but with Barzal out, he is centering the top line, so his ice time will come up, and he's had 6 points in his last 8 games. Going over to Columbus, I look at Boone Jenner, listed as center left winger, owned in 59% of Yahoo leagues, so his ownership is really increasing. He's on the top line and top power play unit, and building really hot, having 10 points in his last 8 games. Another one from Columbus is Jakub Voracek, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 47% of Yahoo leagues, on that second line and top power play unit, and he's also over a point per game the last little bit, having 8 points in his last 7 games. Again, his centerman on that second line, Jack Roslovic, listed as center right winger, on that second line and second power play unit, only owned in 3% of Yahoo leagues, so definitely available out there, and he has 5 points in his last 4 games. The last one from Columbus is Oliver Borkstrand, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 45% of Yahoo leagues, plays on that second line and top power play unit, and he has 4 points in his last 4 games. Going over to Toronto, I look at Michael Bunting, listed as left winger, owned in 53% of Yahoo leagues, plays on that top line with Matthews and Marner, and plays on the second power play unit, and he definitely benefits playing with Matthews and Marner. He has 9 points in his last 5 games. Of course, he isn't going to always average you almost 2 points a game, but definitely some value there. Next one from Toronto's Alex Kerfoot, listed as center, left wing, and right wing. So I do like that you can place him anywhere in the forward ranks. He's only owned in 16% of Yahoo leagues and currently playing on that second line with Tavares. And he has 6 points in his last 7 games played. Going over to Wednesday D-Men, look at Dmitry Orlov from Washington, only owned in 49% of Yahoo leagues. He plays on the second pairing and second power play unit. He only has 2 points in his last 5 games, so he's a little cold, but for most of the season, he's been around a half or better than half point per game, so definitely worth being a streamer on a very light night on Wednesday. Next one is Jeff Petrie from Montreal, owned in 51% of Yahoo leagues, currently on the second pairing and back manning the top power play unit, and considering how slow he was to starting to see that form from last year. He has 7 points in his last 8 games. Another one from Montreal's Ben Sherratt to look at. He's owned in 6% of Yahoo leagues, plays on the top pairing and second power play unit, and for more of a defensive guy that kind of adds value in shots and hits and blocks, he does have 6 points in his last 5 games. Going on to Wednesday forwards, I look at Connor Sheary from Washington, listed as left winger or right winger, and available pretty much in any league. He's only owned in 1% of leagues. He's on the second line and second power play unit, and he's been really hot since being in the top 6, having 5 points in his last 6 games. Going to Montreal, I look at Nick Suzuki, listed as center, right winger, owned in 67% of Yahoo leagues, so his ownership's definitely up there, but available in about a third of leagues. He's on that top line and top power play unit, and that top line in Montreal's been hot. He has 9 points in his last 6 games. Another one from the top line that also plays on the top power play is Josh Anderson, listed as a right winger, owned in 16% of Yahoo leagues, and he has 6 goals and 1 assist in his last 6 games. And finishing off the top line is Cole Caulfield, listed as a right winger, owned in 51% of Yahoo leagues, and he's been really hot, having 10 points in his last 7 games. Moving over to Vancouver, some players to consider is Bo Horvat, listed as a center, owned in 66% of Yahoo leagues, so yeah, his ownership's up there, but available, you got a 1 in 3 shot of finding him. He's on that top line and top power play unit, and he has 5 points in his last 5 games played. Another one from Vancouver that has low ownership is Tanner Pearson, listed as a left winger, only owned in 4% of Yahoo leagues, plays on that second line and second power play unit, and he has 6 points in his last 6 games played. So we'll move along to other defensemen that have 4 games this week, and I look at Dante Fabro from Nashville, not owned anywhere, 0% owned, moved up to that top pairing with Carrier going out and on the second power play unit, and he has 4 points in his last 6 games to go along with 8 shots on goal and 10 blocks. Also going Philadelphia's Travis Sanheim, again low ownership, 1% owned, plays in that second pairing, but he's been really good of the last couple of weeks, having 4 points in his last 6 games to go along with 13 shots on goal and 10 blocks. A couple others to look at from Philly is Provorov or Yandel, because they do get some power play time for you, so them are some others to consider. Moving over to St. Louis is Colton Parayko, owned in 30% of Yahoo leagues, does play on that top pairing, and in the last 5 games he has 3 points. He's plus 10 in those 5 games, has 10 shots on goal and 12 blocks, so there's definitely some secondary value for you. Going over to Tampa, Jan Ruta, owned in 0% of Yahoo leagues, so find him anywhere. He is kind of a stretch play, but he does play on that top pairing with Hedman right now, and he has 4 points in his last 7 games. So if you are in a pinch, that's definitely somebody to look at. Next one's Nate Schmidt from Winnipeg, owned in 20% of Yahoo leagues, currently on the third pairing and second power play unit, but he's very streaky and he has 3 points in the last 2 games played, so hopefully we snag him on a hot streak. Last one from Winnipeg's Josh Morrissey, owned in 48% of Yahoo leagues, does play on that top pairing and top power play unit, and he's been fairly consistent, probably the most consistent defenseman in Winnipeg. He has 4 points in his last 8 games to go along with 17 shots on goal and 16 blocks, so he definitely brings you some secondary value there. So we'll move along to other forwards that play 4 games this week. I look at Ryan Johansson from Nashville, listed as a center, owned in 27% of Yahoo leagues, plays on that second line and top power play unit, and he has points in back-to-back games, which is a good sign, and he does have 38 points on the year, so he's had a fairly good season. Another one to consider, but he's been colder of late, is Mikael Granlund. He's centers at top line, and he's also had a fairly decent fantasy year. Going over to Philadelphia, I look at Travis Konechny, listed as a right winger, owned in 23% of Yahoo leagues, plays on that second line and second power play unit. He's been really good of late, having 8 points in his last 10 games to go along with 28 shots on goal. Another one from that second line is Scott Laughton, listed as a center left winger, only owned in 7% of Yahoo leagues, and he's been really good the last 12 games, having 11 points in those 12. Going over to St. Louis, I look at Robert Thomas, listed as center right winger, only owned in 28% of Yahoo leagues. He does play on that second line and second power play unit, and he has 9 points over his last 8 games. More in St. Louis is Brandon Saad, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 12% of Yahoo leagues. Does play on that top line right now, and it shows he has 4 points in his last 5 games. Another one from that top line is David Perron, listed as left winger, right winger. His ownership's higher at 60%, but still 4 in 10 chance you find him. He's on that top line and top power play unit, and he has 7 points in his last 5 games. Going to Tampa Bay, I look at the old veteran Corey Perry, listed as a right winger, only owned in 9% of Yahoo leagues. He's currently on the third line, but does get second unit power play time, and he has 6 points in his last 6 games. So definitely might be worth a stream in week 20. Moving on to Vegas is Chandler Stevenson, listed as center left winger, only owned in 55% of Yahoo leagues. He's on that top line right now with Eichel and top power play unit, and he's had a really good season, having 41 points in 52 games played. Another one to look at from Vegas is Riley Smith, listed as a right winger, only owned in 38% of Yahoo leagues, and he has 3 points in his last 3 games played. Going over to Winnipeg, I look at Paul Stastny, listed as center left winger, only owned in 5% of Yahoo leagues, currently on that top line and second power play unit, and he has 3 points in his last 2 games played. So hopefully playing up there with Scheifele, it does give him some more points, some added value for you. Next one's Evgeny Svechnikov, not the younger Svechnikov, but his older brother, listed as right winger, available everywhere, 0% owned. Playing on that second line, he's been playing almost all year on the third line, sometimes fourth line, and since being bumped up, it's really showed. He has 5 points in his last 3 games played. So I really hope these do help you out. If you did enjoy the episode, do remember to hit like, hit subscribe, and remember that notification bell. Later this week, we will have our waiver wire ads episode and also our weekend ads episode. And good luck in week 20 to all you fantasy owners out there.